Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Castile Resources Webcast. It is now my pleasure to introduce your host, Mr. Mark Heffron, Managing Director. Thank you. You may begin.
Thanks very much, and thank you very much to everyone for listening in to the Castile Resources presentation today. I appreciate your time. Castile Resources, if we go to our lead page there, was listed on February 14. And I'll just run quickly through that. This is not an offer to subscribe for shares in any jurisdiction, given your safe harbour rules there. So on February 14, the company listed on the ASX, and it was somewhat of a baptism of fire. After listing at a 30% premium, we then caught the coronavirus to an extent, and the shares have traded off, and we now only have a market capitalisation of 24 million Australian dollars. We have 18 million dollars in cash, which will allow us to explore and complete all of the pre-development activities that we need to do. So we won't be needing any cash for at least 3 years. Hopefully what will get in the way of that will be the fact we go into production or go into construction, and we'd plan to do that and go to a final investment decision towards the end of 2020. Depending on what happens with the virus, we may be pushed back 2 or 3 months, but obviously we are hoping to get on with things within a month or two, depending on what happens out in Australia with the virus. The enterprise value is therefore about $6.1 million. So Castile was born out of Westgold Resources. Westgold is a $1 billion market cap gold producing company. They produce around about 300,000 ounces of gold every year. The assets were located in the Northern Territory, which is why Westgold decided to demerge them. And you can see there they have a dominant position in Western Australia, and it seemed obvious from a geographical point of view to separate the company so it could have its own set of funds, that is the $20 million we raised, and its own concentrated staff and people to get these assets going. And you should be able to see why when we go through them. But the key asset to this company is a project called Rover 1, which is a high-grade iron oxide copper gold deposit, which is really ready for pre-development with all the infrastructure in place, because Westgold has worked on this asset for the last 10 years. What I'm going to show you now is our remote exploration camp to give you an idea of where it's located in the Northern Territory, what sort of land we're on. We're located about 55 miles southwest of Tennant Creek, which is an outback town in the Northern Territory in Australia. So the slide I'm going to play for you will show you the exploration camp, as that just starts now, hopefully for you as well. Underneath there, what appears is the initial workings and the mining engineer you can see there in colour, with the decline heading off to the northeast. And then you'll see the slide develop through the road to Tennant Creek. And then what you're going to see is all the significant mines that were in Tennant Creek over the last 50 years. So you can see what's happening there. We are seeing this development and this mine as an undercover repetition of the Tennant Creek goldfields, which were amongst really the highest in the history of Australia. And as far as grades go, one of the highest gold producing areas in the history of the world. So we're in a very nice little neighbourhood. The go-to science for these particular types of formations is geophysics, because obviously we are about 280 metres or about 350 yards underground, and we're seeing these formations similar to what they were seeing at surface expressing in Tennant Creek. And these things have been mined for over 100 years in Tennant Creek. The idea with the geophysics, and you can see it there, when you run the magnetics and gravity, the anomalies light up like an absolute Christmas tree, and therefore the geologists can pick their way through that and decide where to hit the drilling. And there's been 3 major drilling programs here, and you can see they've got the hang of it because there's been 3 major discoveries. Rover 1 is the discovery we'll be talking most about, that has had the most amount of work done on it for the last 10 years. Explorer 108 to the northwest there in the diagram, and Explorer 142. So we'll just have a look what we've got at those 3 different significant deposits. You can see the shaded area there in green is our 10 exploration tenements, which we have in the area. You can see they form a pretty large chunk of Australia. It's about 1,400 square miles, or just over 2,000 square kilometres. But what we do have here is at Explorer 108, we've got 12 million tonnes of 3% zinc and 2% lead. We have that's at Explorer 108. At Explorer 142, we have. Let's go back to that one. We have 170,000 tonnes of copper at 5.2%. And this is the big one here at Rover. We've got 7 million tonnes here, and that contains gold at just under 2 grams per tonne and 1.2% copper. We also have cobalt and bismuth in what is a very high-grade polymetallic deposit. But within that universal resource, we've got, as far as high grade goes, 1.3 million tonnes at 7 grams for over 300,000 ounces of gold. We've also got, as you can see there, a good grade, just under 2% copper to 63,000 tonnes. This is a mineral resource, but it is a very good start with these high grade cores, and you'll see what we've done with it in a couple of slides. So really, this is what the buried treasure is all about. You will not see higher grades of gold or copper anywhere in the world. This is incredibly unique from that point of view, and these are comparable with anything, any quality in the world. Just to run through the gold intercepts there on the left, you can see the 7 metres at 125 grams per tonne, or the equivalent of over 7 metres at 4 ounces per tonne. And obviously that's what we're looking at in the middle. If you haven't seen high-grade visible gold in core, that is it there. That is incredible, and this is, I cannot emphasise that these are extremely high-grade gold and copper deposits, and obviously we are mining these heavy cores, which are heavy in grade, and you can see over there on copper. If a gold company comes up with something, you know, even if it's 4, 5, 10 metres at 7 or 8 grams, everyone gets very excited. So you can see why we are very excited about these gold intercepts being multiples of that. And also in copper, 1 or 2% for 20 metres is a really good reading. We're getting 20 metres multiple times at 5%, 6%, and in the 4s there. Very high grade, which is the attraction of these style of deposits. So we've taken the last 10 years' work, and you can see the drill strings there. This is all stuff that Westgold did before the resources now, as we know, belong to Castile. This is the drilling that took place, and they uncovered a western zone, what we call the Jupiter zone out there on the east, and the Jupiter zone deeps, which is part of that eastern structure. What you're seeing there is one of the initial options or mine plans that we're going through at the moment. So what we're looking to do is adjust to the current Australian dollar gold price, which is about $2,600 to $2,700, depending on the day, and making the most of the high-grade gold, and obviously any copper or bismuth and any byproducts that come with it, including cobalt, are a bonus, and we'll be extracting them at surface and getting value for those as well. But what we are doing is applying literally up to the minute, I guess, testing and alternate mining and processing methods, and the current available financing and methods that are available to everyone. And one of the things that is happening up in that area of the world is there's a $22 billion solar farm going in by a company called Sun Cable, and we will be leveraging off the back of that. And obviously it can, some of the studies we're doing can almost halve at the moment some of our power costs as we go through this pre-feasibility study. So we're looking forward to the results of that, and we see that finishing hopefully by the middle of this calendar year. One thing we do want to do is add a bunch of drilling to this pre-feasibility, because we've got about 6 to 7 years to start with there as we see it, but we'd really like to go hard and get this up to a 10-year plus mine life right at the start of the project. So I'm just going to take you underground now with this animation, and we'll kick that off. And as we go through, I'll show you what the blocks are showing. This is the initial discovery. I know it looks like gold, but that's the banded ironstones within the structure. This is just the copper blocks that we'll be mining. Then you see the copper and the gold blocks that we'll be mining. And then it goes just to the gold, which you see there. And then what we do is we drop the drilling in, as you can see. And it just gives you an idea of how much work has been done on these particular prospects. There I'm showing you some of the grades that are at the moment not included. They're the ones that are included and the ones that are focusing on the mine. And there you see, obviously, that design drops in around those blocks. Those red dots are where we'll be putting holes to add to the resource. So they're resource definition drilling that we'll be doing once this program starts. And there you see the strings drop in for the exploration that we'll be doing. And I'll be running through that with you to give you an idea of what we think that can add to the project. I'll just let that animation finish there and away we go. So we did have an exploration drilling program planned before the coronavirus hit. We would have been drilling basically this week. The dry season in the Northern Territory, or the areas where we are, starts generally in the middle of April and will run through until November. So we would have a 7 to 8 month drilling window, and we have a drilling rig on standby, and we have our COVID management plan in place. The Northern Territory has shut its borders. They have had only a total of 27 cases in total of the virus, and I think only one person has died in that state. The entire population is about 260 to 270,000 people. So 27 cases of the infection. And as I said, most of those people have now recovered, and I believe there was only 1 or 2 deaths in the state. As an indication, Western Australia, with a population of 2.6 million people, has had 550 cases or infections, and we've had 7 or 8 people die from the virus, and the majority have recovered. I think there's still about 80 or 90 people that are still considered live cases. The rest have recovered from the virus. So we've had pretty minimal numbers with the virus out here, and we do hope we will receive word on April the 30th as to where the Northern Territory is going with regard to border lockdowns. And as I said, our drilling crews waiting on standby once we get the word to go back in. And obviously we'll keep the market informed as to when we go back in and get the rigs on site. Okay, you're familiar now with that mining engineering model there that I've got. We've seen that a couple of times now. But if I draw your attention, obviously, to what we're calling the Ganymede conceptual target, you can see here out to the east of the structure, or the mineral resource that we're working with and doing our mining plan around, you can see why we want to drill down here. There's been hits of gold at 15 metres at 6 grams, 20 at 3 grams. We believe there is another structure. There has also been a Helitem survey done on the structure, and it picked up Jupiter West, it picked up Jupiter, and it also picked up a third structure where you basically see the up plunge area of the Ganymede conceptual gold target. So we are looking for a huge target there, and you can see that why that exploration drilling is targeted where it is. Now, to the other side of the structure, or the western side of the structure, you can see the 2 holes we're planning for there. We believe there is simply another repeat of that Jupiter West structure, and there's been some drilling that's hit down there, and whilst it hasn't been followed up on, simply because we are now in charge and taking over, those holes have to be drilled. And again, we can see years being added through that Ganymede structure, and years being added to the mining profile if we are successful down there at what we're calling the Jupiter West Deeps, or we need to come up with some other names for these things, because we're finding so many of them, which is a good thing. Just moving away now from what we're talking about at Rover, the second project that I mentioned is the Warramunga project, and we're interested in that basically because every major mining centre, or every major mining significant lead, zinc, silver mineralisation has occurred in this particular stratigraphy, which is about 1,700 million years to 1,600 million years ago. And so the structures we are finding at Warramunga, whilst they are extremely isolated, we figure it's worth it. It's about 300 miles to the southwest of our Rover project, but we consider it's worth it for what I'm about to show you in the next slide. We've had surface and rock chipping samples coming in at 8% copper and 10% copper, which is incredible. So this is even buried treasure. This is treasure lying around at the surface. And you can see why we're interested in getting back here and having a look at a few of these large structures which you see on the diagram to the left there. So we're hoping to get back in there as soon as possible and do some work on Warramunga. In tying up the guys that are doing this for you, and I did mention Westgold, that company was built by a gentleman by the name of Peter Cook, who is the executive chairman now of Westgold. He has 35 years experience in this field and is one of the most respected mining entrepreneurs and managers in the country. He is my non-executive chairman, and he has been working on these assets for 10 years. And you can see why he is excited about them as a geologist, because you just simply don't get this sort of grade anywhere else. Just moving, my background is in institutional stockbroking, and 5 years ago went on to managing companies. And so I'm basically bringing this together for Peter Cook and also for Jake Russell, who's the other non-executive director on my board. He's also 20 years experience in the mining area as a geologist, and is also head of geology for Westgold. We have John Braham, who's a non-executive director, was the head of global resources for Macquarie Bank. And you can see down the bottom there, I have a mining engineer and a geologist who are going through all the work that we're doing now with regard to the drilling and the feasibility. Very experienced team, all have 20 years or 25 years plus in their field. So you can see what we are. We're a high-grade metallic ore body. We're on the way now with our pre-feasibility study, and we hope as soon as we get the nod to get back in there and add to what is already a very large universal resource and work up a couple of these targets. And then we have a very strong board and capable management to do it, and we're going to get underway very quickly. The other important thing is, of course, we have 18 million Australian dollars, which will do us, as I said, for the next 3 years as far as exploration goes. But we hope that is interrupted within the next 12 to 13 months, because we're going to pull the trigger on the final investment decision and get underway. And so that really brings me to the end of my presentation. And thank you all very much for listening. I've just popped in there into the appendix what I've talked about as far as that universal mineral resource goes. So thank you very much. I'll hand back to our moderator now, and you all have a good day.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's webcast. You may disconnect at this time.